I made it. Oh, how late am I? A minute. Sorry, I was running around. Whew. I was running around trying to get everything ready. Well, not everything. Me. Getting my. Oh, so I'm shaking everything. There's so many little things that just add up. Like I haven't even turned my light on yet over here. Let's get that. Oh, whoa. That got bright. Hold on. It's off. Okay. And way brighter than it's supposed to be. There we go. Sometimes I have it behind the computer. I just don't have time to move it right now. I have to have my coffee. I have to have a water bottle. You know how, and I sometimes, oh, I forgot. I sometimes have an extra water bottle sitting on the floor just in case. Um, I always kill about 5 minutes, get people time to get the notification and come on and everything. So, in this biotine, no, no sponsorship, but they should. I found this. So, if you know, I know a lot of people in my chat are my age. So many people have taken pain medications or different medications that can make your mouth dry. Simple water won't do the trick. This stuff is an enzyme spray, and literally a couple sprays, because it's an enzyme. You can feel it spread out and coat your mouth. It's so weird, but it works. Now it's got a little minty flavor to it. I've been using this for years, but I was out for a while when I first started going live streaming. And, when I'm out on the street, I'm not constantly talking, unlike when I'm on here. So, just got to check something. Hey, Irish, how are you doing? Oh, I'm finally feeling a little bit better. I had to cancel my late night stream last night. I just couldn't do it. It takes a lot too, because I just sit here, but I'll go into it a little bit more maybe at the end, because there's people that watch this on replay probably don't care about my medical issues. But so if you're still here at the end, remind me and ask me what's been going on, and I'll go over it then. But I'm feeling pretty okay today. Usually, if I'm not here, or I'm not in Austin, it's either something medical or vehicle issues. Because if it's something personal, usually I know ahead of time for the most part. But I actually only scheduled my live stream for last night. Yesterday, I thought I was going to be okay, but I just wasn't up to it. So let's see how many minutes we've been on. Couple more minutes. So good to see you. I think it's just you and me right now, Irish. But I know some people do watch this on the replay, and that's one of the reasons I try to read quickly, and I try not to stop too much, but I have to stop, because you know how litigious Scientology can be. If I'm not having discussions on what we're reading, then they'll just get me for reading it. And we don't want to give them any ammunition. Oh, I was just watching Aaron's video on what's going on with Patrick Perry. If you haven't watched it yet, I hadn't finished the whole thing yet. He'd gotten up to where the video where Patrick's dog attacked one of the other protesters in the alley. And I cannot believe they did not file charges on that guy for that assault, for any of those assaults. But you know what? I thought about, because they found paperwork on him for something non-Scientology related. He's been arrested. And I was telling my husband, he woke up for a little while, and I told him about it. And I said, I believe in karma. I said, what goes around comes around. So he may not have gotten in trouble for what he did to the protesters, but he's in trouble now. And none of us knew he was already a felon. So that surprises me even more, that they would use a felon to go after protesters, and that the LAPD would back him up. But so I really do hope they're able to do to get somewhere with this stuff, because it's getting out of hand. That and what's happening to Nance Drew. And then I heard that they are going to press charges on Michael when every video shows he did nothing wrong and that the guy lied. So I personally feel if it were me and I lived in the area, I would have went after that guy civilly, just because I would have. Because you can go to small claims court and not need a lawyer. So, all right, it's been 5 minutes. So we are in the middle of Emotion and the Life Force chapter. Been listening to Cults Inside and Out on Audible during my evening walks. Yeah, I'm sure. Well, they're one of the biggest, I think, biggest and richest cult there is. So they are going to get a lot of mentions, and they've been around, I think, one of the longest. And somehow, I mean, LRH, I think because he wasn't like hands-on, and that even when he started Dianetics, so this is Dianetics talk. When he started Dianetics, they opened up Dianetics centers at the same time the book came out, and different people ran those. He was just kind of above it and was raking in the dough. All the other cults that have imploded, the cult leader, it's this cult, that person's in charge, they want to be in control, and it always gets, there's drugs that get involved a lot, and of course the intimate issues get involved, and they eventually implode. This guy was smart. I mean, that's the only thing about L. Ron Hubbard. I don't understand how he wasn't book smart. He couldn't get into the Naval Academy. He failed twice and then used his eyes to get out of trying again. Because, he only did it because his dad was in the Navy. He only did it because his dad wanted him to. I guess the way he was an officer in World War II is he had some college. Hi, Cricket. How are you? I miss you guys. I've only been out once this week. So I think that's the biggest reason Scientology didn't implode like most cults do, is he set it up to be everywhere, and not just the one cult that he wanted to be in charge of, and get all the adulation. He did set it up a lot like a church or organization. So what I was saying was he wasn't book smart, but he was people smart, and he knew how to, what's the word I want? I can't think of a good, shyster money out of people. So he really studied people. He really studied hypnosis. He studied manipulation. I mean, that's what he was good at. He wasn't good at anything else. He failed at everything else he ever did. Even his writing wasn't that. People that lived near him and his first wife said they were always in need of money. So he was selling some of his work, but not much of it. And he had just enough of that imagination that he was able to set up Scientology, Dianetics, and Scientology in a way that could prop itself up, when he wasn't physically in charge. I still don't know exactly how he did it, but he did it. And that's why we're here. Honestly, if the man, we read some in this last chapter too that we're in now. If he would have stuck to this and not been so abusive and not pursued such abusiveness or total control over people, if he had kept it not so controlling, I think it would have succeeded. I really do, at least up until social media. But I think it would have succeeded even more than it did. But, people with God complexes, or, that's just a general term. But, he wasn't doing it to help people. If he had been, I think, yes. LRH seems to have had a certain charismatic charm. That's the thing he was good at, and manipulating people. I I remember even Aleister Crowley called him oh gosh, I did a video on it. What did he call him? A confidence trickster. He called him a confidence trickster. And if the wickedest man on the planet, which was Aleister Crowley was named that, didn't like you, you were doing something wrong. Cricket. I read that he wasn't considered a good writer by other science fiction writers of the day, but most of them did admit he had a way of telling the story in person. That's why he succeeded so well. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yes. And that comes from, okay, so I finally had found it was malignant narcissism is what people think he had. And when I read that, I want to do a video on just his mental thing. Okay, so malignant narcissism refers to a specific, less common manifestation of narcissistic personality disorder. Some experts consider the presentation of narcissism the most severe type. Okay, so it combines characteristics of narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, aggression, sadism, either towards others, self, or both, and paranoia. Now, the sadism is what I then looked at. Hold on. Let me bring up sadism. Because I knew what calling a sadist meant, but so I looked up sadism. A tendency to derive pleasure, especially intimate gratification, from inflicting pain, suffering, or humiliation on others. And that's the one that really got my attention. And that's why I believe it's so abusive. And obviously somebody that wants to take over that kind of a thing, David Miscavige, would have to have similar traits to want to go as far as a coup to take over the whole thing. And then we find out in a lot of ways he's worse. He's way more abusive. I mean, he's just an angry little man. So, all right, but so that has something to do with, the reading of the Dianetics and everything. Because I've said there have been parts of this book, had I been somebody before, back when it was new, or 50, 60, 70, pretty much before the internet, if I was, I've had anxiety disorder since probably my whole life. I didn't get diagnosed till like 98. A lot of that has to do with issues from my childhood. So, I was always looking for some sort of help. And if I'd have read this book, it would have been interesting to me. I would have been interested to know more, to see if, although I'm the kind of person you can see I like to research things. So I would have done a little bit of deep diving. I wouldn't have just taken it on face value, but there are a lot of people who would. So a lot of the things that he writes in here make sense because he's taken normal human emotions and characteristics and behavior and psychology and therapy, and all he did is repackage it and change the words and add his twist to it. So a lot of what he says in here makes sense. But I could read, sorry, right in front of my face. I could read another self-help book or another book on therapy and probably get similar. So I can see how this took off. And then he used this and into the Scientology. I want to do a little bit more research because we did like an over 2-hour show one day where we talked about how Dianetics started and then how it turned into Scientology and that kind of thing. So maybe we can do that. I don't see him in his psychiatric psychiatric way. I think of him, yeah, as a liar and a criminal. Because we look at that because we know what we know now. Okay, so there's two ways that I look at things when we're reading this. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It sounded cutting edge because what was the alternative in 1951 or 60 or 70s or 80s even? Was a mental asylum. And those were some really scary places. They didn't help you. They pretty much just threw you in a room to keep you away from society, and a lot of doctors did a lot of experiments. I mean, I think it was a Kennedy. There was a sister who was put in an asylum, and I believe she was given a lobotomy. JFK's had a sister. I think, if I get my facts wrong sometimes, and it's not something I've studied a lot. But that's a high profile family that wanted to hide somebody with mental illness away, and was given either electric shock or lobotomy or both. But they did those. They thought that was the only thing available at that time. So that would have been 50s, 40s, 50s, early 60s. I don't know what exactly happened to her. I watched a little short about it. That was it. So I mean, if you had a choice between I need help, this sounds like it might help, and an asylum, I'd go for this. And like I said, this sounds like it could help you if it had been done right. Had it not been perverted in so many ways. I think I would have taken out the crap about prenatal engrams and that your mother is the problem with everything with you. I mean, I totally understand why Scientologists are afraid to go to the doctor and afraid to have babies. I mean, it would do that to me too if I thought this was real. So, all right. So we ended with so emotion in the life force. He was talking numbers. Like I said, I didn't know we were going to do math. But he's talking about when you clear all your engrams, you have more life force, I think is what he was trying to say. And then he went into manic a little bit. We talked a little bit about manic depression. Of course, he thinks everything wrong with you is fixable with auditing. So I'm just going to read like the last couple paragraphs to catch us up to where we are. This manic, then, as in the case of the boy wonder, can be assumed to have gathered up available life force and suddenly channeled it along basic purpose lines, making a high level of concentration of life force. In the case of the pianist, his cleared force was well above the manic force. In the other case, currently in process, a level has been reached which is approaching the former level and will surpass it by far. In the same way, an enthusiasm for a project will channel life force along some purpose line, and necessity will suddenly rob back from engrams enough power to carry an individual far, although he has no active manics whatsoever. So we're still kind of in the middle of talking about that. He's saying that having a purpose of your own or having a passion for something will only carry you so far. He thinks, Dianetics will get you further. Yeah, that's right. Yep. I didn't know that. I didn't know the mother didn't know. I didn't know those details. Frigga, you're on top of everything. Thank you. But yeah, I thought that was so sad. So if you've got people like the Kennedys giving their daughter a lobotomy, and the only other thing available is something like this, I can understand how so many people, and there are people that went into Scientology without Dianetics, but still, Scientology said it would help you. And it didn't say it was a church. It just said it was another form of therapy. It can help the able be more able, that line. So, I mean, there are things I've read in here that had I not known what I know would have been interesting. And we almost looked at it in the early 90s, but they wouldn't have gotten us because A, we were too poor, and B, he was in the Army. We couldn't sign up for Sea Org, so we wouldn't have gotten very far in it. I probably would have went in and said, no. All right, so let's keep moving on. So this is a long chapter. Like I said, I'm going to go to the hour and a half mark. If we're not near the end by then, we'll just stop. I think that's about the longest I can even stay involved. All right. Now we come to the heart of this matter, the pro-survival engram. It is pseudo-survival, like all engramic assists, a mirage which dissolves and leaves burning sands. Ooh, bring that up again towards the end. I'd like to talk about that. All right. Formerly, we spoke mainly of contra-survival engrams. These lie across the dynamics of the individual and his basic purpose. The contra-survival engram is to the dynamics like a log jam which dams a necessary river. The dynamic is blocked in some degree. Any blockage to any one of the four dynamics or any section of that spectrum causes a dispersal of the flow. It does not make less dynamic particularly, but it does misdirect it in the same order that the river, blocked in its natural flow, might become 5 streams going in various directions, or flood a fertile pasture it should merely have watered. The pro-survival engram alleges to assist, but does not actually assist, the dynamic on its way. It pretends it is the dynamic. In the analogy of the river, the pro-survival engram would be a canal which took the river's force and sent it off in some unintended direction. The pro-survival engram is not a manic. It can and does contain at times manic phrases. The contra-survival engram says, he's worthless. Damn him. Let's kill him. Now, just so to... he's saying these engrams of those words, the baby heard when in the womb. And he's totally obsessed with women that try to unlive their pregnancies. And it doesn't work. So then they hear all these horrible things about him. And that's going to ruin their whole life. So that when he talks about these words, that's where they come from. The pro-survival engram says, I am saving him. If it added, he is a darling and very wonder with the ladies, it would be a pro-survival with a manic. In terms of the descriptic, which defines the survival dynamic and the suppressor earlier in this book, the contra-survival engram would be part of the suppressor, an aberrated part, and the pro-survival engram would be part of the dynamic thrust, an aberrated part. I'll be honest, I'm not totally following all of this, but I mean, I kind of get that's what happens when you have a week in between. But we know he talked a lot about being in the reverie and doing the repeater technique, and that wasn't. I think that was earlier. I think he's just breaking down engrams even more. Yeah, I want to talk about that later. So I'm trying to follow this as best I can. I mean, I get what the contra survival engram, it's counter survival. So it's something that goes against his survival. Then he has the pro survival engram. I am saving him. He's a wonder. Because they talked about the pianist that was a boy wonder because that's what he heard. So it's kind of like that. Neither one of these things is actually a sentient and computable portion of survival dynamic or suppressor. The engram, delirium from illness perhaps, which says, I will stay with you, darling, so long as you are sick, is an apparent but wholly shadow stuff part of the survival dynamic. But the reactive mind has no sense of time when restimulated, and this engram keyed in and constantly restimulated by some concept in it, such as an odor or a person's voice, who may or may not be the original person, demands that the person who has it be ill just as he was ill when it was said. Okay, so it kind of just explained what we were just reading. The contra survival, the pro survival. Okay. This way, according to our moron, the reactive mind lies survival. I had someone taking care of me when I was ill. I need someone to take care of me. I must be ill. And that's what I mean by some of this stuff makes sense. That can be, something that's real that people tend to go through. The reactive mind is our subconscious. And if that person had had a lot of attention when they were sick, then they might pretend or think they're sick a lot of the time because they got the response they wanted. So, I mean, he's taking real mental issues and just changing the words around and saying that he can fix you. Here is the basic pattern of all sympathy engrams. Here is the basic pattern of the engram, which will contain the chronic psychosomatic illness in any patient. The variety is, of course, very large, but all insist that the individual who has them be ill in order to survive. The suppressor type engram, always contra survival, can be cut into restimulation in exactly the same way as the pro survival engram. An engram is an engram, and all the mechanics are the same. The fact that the analytical mind cannot time the engram can make any engram seem omnipresent. Definition: present everywhere at the same time, widely or constantly met with. Okay. Time can heal the experiences of the analytical mind, perhaps, but not the reactive mind, which has no time, a fact which makes time not the great healer, but the great charlatan. There may be no actuality at all in this suppressor data. It is false data. Such engrams let an individual, for instance, see a butterfly and then tell him it is dangerous. He then comes to detest spring because that is the time he sees butterflies. This engram may say, "You're all against me. You're against everything I do," which was actually Mama making a stand against her husband and mother-in-law. It contains a concept, a recording of the sound of a sewing machine as well. The individual possessing this engram hears a sewing machine, if this engram has at some time been keyed in, at a moment when he is weary and dull and looking toward the machine. He never identifies the actual sound. These engrams protect themselves. Sees his wife. She is the associative restimulator, something his analytical mind, told to scent danger, picks up as the cause. So he searches around and finds something he is angry about, something almost rational, and begins to tell her she is against him. Or it can be an engram of such low emotional tone that it is an apathy, and so he sits down and weeps and moans that she is against him. If during unconsciousness at birth, the doctor said he'd have to spank him, the individual possessing this engram howls and gets headaches when he is spanked, and when grown, spanks his children as the strongest suppressor he can think of. There is a difference, then, between the pro and contra engrams, particularly the real sympathy pro engram and the contra engram. And it is a difference, even if we have been long on the road in this chapter, which is of vital interest to the auditor. All the real reluctance he will see in pre-clears during therapy will come from these sympathy pro-survival engrams. These add up into some very weird computations. They tell the patient that he had better not get rid of it, and so the patient struggles to retain his engrams. Such an engram is very common. A typical case is mama pushing off papa, who insists he cannot afford a child. The struggle injures the child, and in the unconsciousness, he receives, of course, an engram. Mama is refusing to get rid of it. Mama is on baby's side. Therefore, baby had better do exactly as mama says and not get rid of it. This aligns with purpose, the deepest purpose to survive. If he gets rid of his engrams, he will die because getting rid of it means death. For Mama said she would die if she got rid of it. Further, on up through life, Mama may have the nasty habit of telling him when he is ill that she will take care of her baby and protect him from his father, and this makes a new force in the old computation. You know, as I'm reading this, I'm thinking there are many, many other examples he could have used during pregnancy to give an unborn child an engram of things said. Why is it always some form of getting rid of the pregnancy or the baby? Why is it always that? Because if that were true, I mean, he's literally saying every single mom on the planet at the time was doing this and causing all of these engrams. And he also never talks about a healthy relationship during a healthy pregnancy. It's always just the bad stuff. Of course, he couldn't, if it was good stuff, he probably wouldn't, you wouldn't need him. It's just, I just think there are other times you might say something bad, something, I can't think of the right word right now, but that if this were all true, is what I'm saying. That there would be other incidents in those 9 months. You might say something that affects the baby. Why is it always this one set of things? This guy really had issues. So now, every person that goes into auditing, at least then, had to go back and find that their mother was at fault somehow, whether they lied about it or not. Because we do know a lot of people that have left that said they had to make things up because there wasn't anything. All right. Thus, we come to the ally computation. This will be the chief and number one struggle of the auditor, the thing which will most elusively resist him, the thing which lies down close to the core of a person. The ally computation is severe enough that an auditor once said that a man is not victimized by his enemies, he is murdered by his friends. And grammatically speaking, that is quite true. I don't think any auditor said that. I think he made that up himself. The only aberration and psychosomatic ill the patient will continually hold to is a pro-survival engram, which is part of an ally computation. That could be written 50 times here without being stressed enough. It is most important. It is the first thing which the auditor is going to buck when he enters a case. The first thing he must discharge if he wishes therapy to go swiftly. He may have to touch and reduce many contra-survival engrams, for they come swiftly enough when called, before he can even get an idea of what the ally computation is. But when he gets an ally computation, he had better run it out and discharge all its emotion, or the case will hang fire. The ally computation is the reactive mind level moronism, that survival depends on Grandma or Aunt Sue or some serving maid 30 years dead, the attendants of the individual when he was ill, the people who begged his pregnant mother to stop trying to abort him, or fed him, or otherwise tried to keep him from being hurt. Those are the allies. The reactive mind operates wholly on two valued logic. Things are life or they are death. They are right or they are wrong, just as the engram wording states. And the personnel of engrams are friends or enemies. The friends, the allies, mean life. The enemies mean death. There is no middle ground. Any restimulator or associated restimulator for the pro-survival engram means life, and any restimulator or associated restimulator for a contra survival engram means death. The auditor, of course, may be a really restimulated person, one who is a pseudo father or pseudo lover of mother before birth, etc. But he is always an associative restimulator. The person who may take away these terribly horribly vital things, the pro-survival engrams. The contra survival engrams outbalance this factor, and of course, the analytical mind of the pre-clear is always all for the auditor and the therapy. The trouble comes when the analytical mind is shut down by restimulation and the auditor is seeking the ally computation. Then the pre-clear's reactive mind dodges and avoids. The ally computation, however, is simple to trace, and it is very vital to trace it, for this computation may contain the bulk of all the emotional discharge of the case. Freeing the complete ally computation wholly before basic is reached is wholly impossible, but as much life force as possible must be restored to the pre-clear to make the case work well. Oh. Oh. Thanks, Adam. How you doing? Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I this is why I like to talk to people that have left to find out, how did they marry this stuff up in their own head? If they really honestly couldn't go back and remember anything from the womb, they have to. He says that that's where it all starts. So after, I mean, are you going to sit there in 300 hours of session, or are you going to make some, oh yeah, this was said, you know? I mean, I would. I'd do whatever I needed to do to get out of auditing. If you honestly had taken out this pre-birth stuff and just dealt with people's real life issues, like maybe they were a kid and their parents did something wrong. If he would have gotten rid of all that weirdness, again, like I said at the beginning, some of you came in later. We said if he would have just stuck to actually trying to help people, this might have turned into something good. But we know that all he wanted to do is make money and be in control. And he takes something that's easily explained in psychology. I literally, I could probably read this whole chapter into Chat GPT and have them put it in normal language, and it would probably be, this is like 45 pages, I think. He could probably narrow, the AI could probably narrow this down to a couple of pages. Because really, he's just talking about restimulation of trauma, going back and finding the original trauma, and helping you work out that trauma and understand it. Pretty much that's what this is about. And that it sits in your subconscious and causes you issues, like all trauma does. I don't mean to reduce it that much, because many people that are involved in this movement have had their own trauma, so we understand what's going on. It took being in this community and being in the chats before I ever went live to understand. I always felt, because I wasn't physically abused, it was all mental, that I really wasn't I didn't have that kind of trauma. So I mean, I'm 55 years old, so it's only been a couple years or year that I finally realized that, yeah, that's kind of major. So this journey has helped me too. I didn't leave that up long enough. Yes. Low regard for children and women. And I have to wonder if this didn't happen in his life somewhere. I don't think maybe it was his own mother, because how would he know? But maybe a wife, girlfriend, something like that. I don't know. Or maybe he just had his own obsession with it. I don't know. I would love to know where it came from. When we start reading the next book, by the way, we're getting really close to being done with this. It's going to be more about Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard. Yeah, I know. I'd love to know more about his childhood. I'm going to look through that book we're going to read next, A Piece of Blue Sky, and see if it's going to have those answers in it. Because this guy, totally blanked on his name. I've said it a bunch of times. He was in Scientology, and he spent like the last 40 years writing about L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. And he has several books. That's just the first one. That's where I got a lot of my black magic information. There's a whole chapter just called The Black Magic. So that's just one chapter in this book that this guy wrote. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Listening to, like, Nora has done shows on trauma. Other people have spoken about it in this community. I didn't go looking for it. I didn't go wanting to go find videos on trauma to find out what was wrong with me. I mean, I know there was issues, and I know it was from my mother. But listening about the Scientology stuff helped me better understand how my brain was working with what happened to me. I think he just had a low regard of people altogether. That would be interesting. Although, for the most part, Cricket, it sounded like it was fairly normal family. I mean, when his father got restationed somewhere, they went. But I will tell you this, being an army wife, my husband in 21 years was gone 10 and a half. I was a single mother for half of our marriage. So the mother in a military family has a lot of stress, a lot of responsibility, and a lot of input when the father is gone. And then even when my husband was home, let's say he was gone for 12 months, came home, he had to reintegrate into our family every time. Hey, S, what's going on? So I don't know if it was abandonment from his mother. It would have been abandonment from his father, though. You know what? He has this real obsession with a pregnant woman having an affair and causing these engrams. I wonder. It's just a thought. Let's keep moving. But yeah, it's definitely an over ridiculous obsession with unaliving pregnancies and pregnant women having affairs. So that may be Liverpool. What's up? It's later for you. Thanks for being here. And I still don't think we're going to finish this chapter today. It's a long, long chapter. But let me show you. We're getting close to the end. Almost there. Okay. Where were we? Dodges, the pre-killers, dodges and avoids these computations. What we would call thoughts. He calls computations. It's just thoughts. Okay. For the ally computation, above all things, insists the life force of the individual. Now, he spelled this where'd it go? I lost it. How did I lose that word? Oh my gosh, guys. I read that. Okay, there it is. For the ally computation, above all things, insists. ENCYSTS. I don't know why he's using that particular word. The life force of the individual. Here is caught and held the free feeling, the very heartbeat of life itself. A pre-clear is only placed in apathy by allied computations. The body can be almost dead in the presence of antagonism and still rally and fight, but it cannot fight its friends. The law of affinity has been aberrated into an entrance into the reactive engram bank, and the law, even when twisted with the murky shadows of unreason in the reactive mind, still works. It is a good law. It is too good when the auditors trying to find and reduce engrams, which are making the pre-clear ache with arthritis or bleed internally with stomach ulcers. Why can't he get rid of his arthritis? Mama said when she gracefully fell over a pig, "Oh, I can't get up. Oh, my poor baby. Oh, my baby. I wonder if I hurt my poor baby. Oh, I hope my baby is still alive. Please, God, let him live. Please, God, let me keep my baby, please." Okay. Only the God to which she prayed was the reactive mind, which makes one of its idiot computations on the basis of everything is equal to everything. A holder, a prayer for life, a thoroughly bruised baby's spine, mama's sympathy, a pig grunt, a prayer to God. All these things are equal to the reactive mind, and so we have a fine case of arthritis. Particularly since our patient sought survival by marrying a girl with a voice just like mama's sounded when he was in the womb. Ask him to get rid of his arthritis. The reactive mind says no. Arthritis is a baby, is a pig grunt, is a prayer to God, is wife's sympathy, is being poor, is mama's voice, and all these things are desirable. He's kept himself poor, and he's kept his arthritis, and he married a wife who would make a harlot blush. And this is pro-survival. Wonderful stuff, survival, when the reactive mind computes it. And in the case of the ulcers, here was baby poked. Oh, he always goes here, you guys. God. I can read this, but here he's obsessing. First of all, there's no way this could have really happened and a baby survive. But he thinks all women back then did this to get rid of their pregnancy. So this is what he says. That's what it's about. I've kind of tried not to read it a few times. Okay, so, and in the case of the ulcers, here was baby poked full of holes. Mom is having a terrible time trying to get rid of him so she can pretend a miscarriage, and she uses assorted household instruments. And some of the holes are through and through this baby's abdomen and stomach. He will live because he is surrounded by protein and has a food supply, and because the sac is like one of those puncture-proof inner tubes that seals up every hole. Nature has been smart about attempted unaliving for a long time. I don't have words. I know. I'm still in the same book. But yes. Let me switch glasses. This particular chapter has created a lot of discussion also. This is the thing. I would love to know why, because I'm sorry, but in his lifetime up to this point, that did not happen that often. Wow. Just wow. And I'm sorry, but no, if that child had been injured that way would not have come out normal, if at all. I mean, he's talking like he's a doctor now and knows exactly. No, sorry. No. No. Just, oh my gosh. That's what he's trying to say that ulcers are caused from. Or just, oh my gosh. Now we're getting into the beyond ridiculousness of this. Right before this, I was saying some of this made sense. I could see how some of this would interest people. But now we're getting into parts where if I were at that time reading this, I'd be like, no, sorry, I just can't go there. I just can't. I need to start marking when I stop. Like, oops, sorry. Because it's very small writing. Where's my pen? I got to start marking when I start talking to you guys. All right. Then okay, so it so happens that Mama in this case was not a monologus. He has the definition of harlot, but he doesn't give us the definition of that word. All right, let me read that again. It so happens that Mama in this case was not a monologuist, although most of Mama's activity on this line is a dramatization and has conversation with it. But it also so happens that Grandma lives next door and she comes over unexpectedly shortly after the latest effort to make baby meet oblivion. Grandma may have been an attempted unaliver in her day, but now she is old and highly moral, and besides, this baby is not giving her any morning sickness. She therefore finds much to censure when she sees a stick in the bathroom. I am not going into the description. Baby is still unconscious. Grandma berates Mama. Any daughter of mine who would do such a horrible thing should be punished by the vengeance of God. The principle of don't do as I do, do as I say, for who gave Mama this dramatization in the first place? So now they're blaming that on the grandmother. And driven through the streets. Your baby has a perfect right to live. If you don't think you can take care of him, I certainly will. Now you go right on through with your pregnancy, Eloisa. And when the baby is born, if you don't want him, you bring him to me. The idea of trying to hurt that poor thing. And so when our bleeding ulcer case gets born, there is Grandma and there is security and safety. Grandma is here, the ally, and she can become an ally in 1,000 different ways, any of them based on the principle that she talks sympathetically to baby when he is out like a flounder and fights Mama in his favor when he is unconscious. And when he grows to boyhood, he can be found placing a large dependency on Grandma, much to the parental wonder, for they never did anything to little Roger, not they. And Roger will, when Grandma is dead, develop bleeding ulcers to get her back. Whoever is a friend is to be clasped to the bosom with bonds of steel, says the great genius, the reactive mind, even though it kills the organism. Yeah. Oh, crap. Oh, I thought I deleted it. Sorry. I can't see very well. I just. Again, I'm trying to put myself in the place of people then. And I'm sure it was probably a badly kept secret that people did do this. But I don't believe in a million years that it happened as much as this guy. I swear to God, it's every mother. It's the only example he ever uses. I mean, why can't there be another reason you have issues? Why is it got to be this one thing? So if that's true, then every member to ever go into Scientology has had this happen to them. So that's what he thinks or says is 30 million people. No. Oh, I don't. Oh, I don't. Just dang. I just can't think of any good words. I'm just. Even now, with clinics you can just go to, it doesn't happen that much. Not like what he says in the numbers that he makes it seem. You know what I'm saying? Just wow. Okay. The ally computation is a little more than the mere idiot calculation that anyone who is a friend can be kept a friend only by approximating the conditions wherein the friendship was realized. It is a computation on the basis that one can only be safe in the vicinity of certain people, and that one can only be in the vicinity of certain people by being sick or crazy or poor and generally disabled. Show an auditor a child who was easily frightened by punishment, who was not at ease around home, and who had allies who seemed more important to him than the parents, grandparents, aunts, boarders, doctors, nurses, etc., and who was sickly, and the auditor can usually spring into view an attempted unaliving background because, more often than not, it is there. Just what I said isn't true. Background because more often than not it is there. I just said that. Show an auditor a child who showed enormous attachment for one parent and detestation for the other, and the auditor can bring out a background wherein one person wanted to get rid of or hurt the child and the other parent did not. Again, he's still going. So every person with parental issues or parental trauma had to go back there. It can't be, oh, when you were 5, you got a spanking and you didn't like it, or, other traumas that you get as child or you're abused as a child. It has to be pre-birth. I don't understand. Why can't the birth have been great and there be no problem and something happen later in your life? Again, like people say, don't think too deeply into this. I thought there was some pretty crazy crap in here already, but he's just doubling down on that. I just don't understand why that can be the only engram that causes these problems, or that these problems are always, so any problems you have are always going to go back to one of the parents not wanting the pregnancy. Why does it have to be that? There are so many other reasons for trauma other than that, but that's the only one he ever talked about. So now I can understand why just about every person that ever went into auditing had to come up with something like this, because they've read the book or they've done the classes, so they know that's what they're expecting. So how many people do you think sat there in auditing and had to make up a story just so the auditor would, okay, you finally got it, we're good? Wow. I have a lot of trauma, and guess what? My pregnancy, everybody was happy because my mom wasn't supposed to be able to get pregnant. So they were ecstatically happy. So I'm getting a headache this time because I'm gonna circle that paragraph. Because I'm like, so the auditor is trained that that's what they're gonna have to find. And the person going to auditing knows that's what the auditor has to find. So if you can't come up with a good enough story for your engram, pre-birth engrams, you're going to make it up. And it's going to include this, which just proves his point, even though it's probably made up. Hi, Miss Sunrise. This is... all right. We're at the hour mark. I just want to see how much... we've had a lot of discussion in this chapter. It's the longest chapter and has brought forth many things for me to say. Oh, there's no way. We got way too much. The ally computation then is important, and it is also very secret. By the way, without all this mumbo jumbo, yes, that's true. My ally was my grandmother, my dad's mom. My parents got divorced when I was like 2.5. I didn't have a great home life with my mom. My grandmother was great. She was the most important person in my life. That's just normal human interaction. That's just normal. If you have a problem with a parent, but you have a great grandmother, that's just going to happen. But he has to add all these words to it. The ally computation then is important, and it is also very secret. Trying to get the real allies in a case is often a great struggle. It may be that a patient had 8 or 10 of these allies in some cases and tried desperately to hold to them, and when he could not, searched and found mates and friends who were approximations of his allies. A wife around whom A is continually ill, but whom he will not leave under any circumstances, is usually a pseudo ally, which is to say she approximates some mannerism of the actual ally, has a similar voice, or even a similar first name. B, who will not leave a job, and yet who is working far below his ability level in life, may be there because his boss is a pseudo ally. Further, he may be working at this job because an ally had a similar station in life, and he is being the ally. Anything which can so far corrupt a person's life is naturally going to be difficult to some degree in therapy. For when he is asked to get rid of his ally computation, it is likely that he will give any clue to it, as it is that he would have spit in his ally's face. This guy cannot use the English language well. I got to read that sentence again. It is as likely that he will give any clue to it as it is that he would have spit in his ally's face. That was English, but wow. These pro-survival engrams containing the ally computation can be described as those which contain personnel who defended the patient's existence in moments when the patient conceived that his existence was under attack. This need not be an actual rational defense. It may only be that the content of the engram seems to indicate it, but it can safely be assumed that the worst ally computations are those when the life of the patient was defended against attackers by the ally. Most ally computations have their genesis in the prenatal area. And there he is again. Most ally computations. I just don't understand why it all has to be pre-birth. It doesn't make sense. The ally computation is sought as the first action in any case, and new ally computations are sought throughout a case. These sympathy pro-survival engrams, which make up the ally computations, vary only in intensity from the standard pro-survival engram. A standard pro-survival engram is bad only because someone has expressed friendship for the patient or another person when he was unconscious. It is difficult to discover and clear even when it actually has been entirely misread, which is to say that the pro-survival content was intended for another person than the patient, but is only misconstrued by the patient. If the patient is unconscious and somebody says he is a good guy, actually meaning another person entirely, the egocentric reactive mind takes the phrase to have been meant for oneself. In the sympathy pro-survival engram, the ally computation is composed only of these. There is an actual defense of the person from danger by some ally. This can vary from a dramatic scene wherein somebody has been bent on killing the patient and the ally has arrived, like the cavalry, in the nick of time, to the incident where the patient was simply saved, or assumed he was being saved, from destruction such as drowning, being run over, etc. Oh, so there is other causes. Drowning or being run over. And the sympathy pro-survival engram is only as good as its content in words, for it does not rationalize the action. Engrams have been discovered where the patient was actually being murdered, but the content was such that he was convinced he was being saved. Such a case would include what auditors call a mutual AA, a father and mother together attempting unaliving. Oh. AA, hold on. Hold on a second. My dogs want to go out and they're decided it's time to play right now. Like 2 feet from my computer. My husband's just looking at me. Adam always has the most interesting things to say. Oh, there was a conversation going on. Let me read this. Oh, those are my I know what that is. Got a package. Okay, what were we saying? Auditor pre-clear locked door, hours of interrogation. You can't leave the room until you have a cog. Yeah, I heard that. That's what I mean. My record was 8 hours. I was 14. It was awful, but I got a call. I mean, I can totally understand why somebody would have to make something up to get out of there. I would. I mean, let's say even if this was in the realm of truth, how many people do you really think is going to remember anything when they're in the womb? Oh, you didn't miss my stream yesterday. I canceled it. Rough turbulated. Yeah. They never do that until I'm on here. Any other time they will be asleep all day. Don't care. No, I canceled that. We'll talk about it at the end. I didn't want to put it at the beginning because there are people that might want to watch this on the replay that don't care what was going on with me. All right, let's get back into this. So yeah, so like I said, reading this makes me totally understand when I hear a survivor say, "Oh, I had to make something up in auditing to get out of there." Totally can understand. All right, I forgot to mark it again. So he was back into saying that now it's both parents wanting to not have the baby is the problem. So he's saying a father and mother, a mutual AA, a father and mother together attempting an unalivement. AA meaning attempted. Okay, so AA means attempted A. They literally have a phrase or a letter thing for it. AA. That's what that means. Wow. Wherein Mama was in utter agreement and disposed herself for the operation, but became frightened and began to scream about her precious baby in an effort to save herself from being injured. Patients with this sort of sympathy pro-survival engram can get pretty confused about mother. You think? The insidious aspects of the sympathy pro-survival engrams are several. Number one, they are aligned with the fundamental dynamic of survival in the most literal sense and are therefore aligned with the purpose of the individual. Two, they are like cysts round which contra-survival engrams serve as the outer shell. Three, they most sharply affect the health of the individual and are always the basic factor beneath the psychosomatic illness which the individual displays. Four, they cause the reactive mind, but not the analytical mind, to resist therapy. And five, they are the largest drain upon the life force units. Okay. Me too. Yeah. Well, of course, LRH likes to change all the words to his own thing. Okay. In 3 above, the pro-survival sympathy engram does more than just carry forward the injury which becomes the psychosomatic illness. Any engram in a bundle of data, which includes not only all perceptics and speech present, but also metering for emotion and state of physical being. The last, the state of physical being, would be serious enough. This metering says that structure was so and such at the moment the sympathy pro-survival engram was received. In the case of an embryo engram, then the reactive mind, in forcing the engram back into action, may also force the structural pattern back upon the body. This occasionally results in retarded development, embryo-like skin, embryo-type back curvature, and so forth. The glands themselves, being physical organs, are also sometimes so suppressed in the reactive mind's effort to approximate all conditions. The underdeveloped glands, the sublevel thyroid, the wasted limb, all these things often come from sympathy pro-survival engrams. This is so observably the case that when an individual is being cleared, growth process begins to bring the body up to genetic blueprint even before the case is completed. The change which takes place in the physical being of the patient is sometimes so remarkable and so marked that it is far more startling than the mere disappearance of a catalog of psychosomatic ills, such as coronary ulcers, arthritis, allergies, and so on. It would be supposed that anything powerful enough to twist the physical blueprint and keep the body from developing or make it keep on growing where it should have stopped would resist any therapy. This is true only in a most limited sense. Once one is aware of what suppresses a case, one can go about vanquishing the suppressors because a pro-survival engram, unlike a contra-survival engram, has an Achilles heel. The most workable answer, now known to Dianetics, lies in the principle of life force units and a technique for throwing them back into circulation. The pro-survival engram collects and holds such units, according to this theory, and collapses when its power to hold units is broken. So he's saying that when you get clear of these engrams, if you have a physical issue, that it will start to fix itself. I don't blame US. Go. Anyone that can't handle this, go. I should really look more forward in these, but to be honest, there's probably triggering issues in every chapter. So, yeah, definitely. I should just start from now. I only have a few more chapters, but I should just start just warning people. But, well, S has also been through some of this, so it's not just what I'm reading, it's the whole thing. So I don't blame him. Hey, Parody. All I'm getting out of this part of this chapter, I'm sorry, guys, I have dry mouth. Biotin works a little bit, but not all the time. I took my meds right before I came on. They're kicking in. So all we're getting out of this part of the chapter is that every negative thing that's wrong with you happened prenatal, happened because one or both of your parents wanted to unalive you or tried and failed, and it can cause physical illness. He's even saying like the back is curved wrong, or different physical things, and that when you get clear of these engrams, your body will right itself. You know, my first thought when I was reading that was, this is probably why they don't take people with issues, because then they would find out it doesn't work. The able, more able. So they don't take these people with major physical illnesses, or diseases. They're like, nope, not you. So now now it's making sense why. We just assumed they were just callous, selfish people. But no, they can't. They literally cannot take anybody with these issues, because then it would be proven they can't help them. So they have to only take the able. Because, well, okay, if I was John Travolta and I had a son that had autism and seizures, I'd be wondering why Scientology wasn't helping him, and why, you know what I'm saying? And he was kept out of the limelight. Well, he had autism. He probably couldn't handle a lot of people, but if they had like MS or anything like that, and I don't know I'm drawing a blank, but you know what I mean. If they had a disease that really wasn't curable, there's no way that they could let them become a member of Scientology, because it would be a glaring fail once they got clear, or they could never allow them to get clear, because then it would prove it doesn't really help. So that now it kind of makes a sense on a level that it didn't before, of why they don't take people that really do need help. As a never end, I just kind of figured it was kind of a combination of, they really can't help people and they really don't want to help people. But now it goes to the core doctrine. If they let those people come in and they go through auditing and they don't get better, yeah. So it's making a little more sense now. I'm really glad I read this book. because I know what survivors say they went through and why and what auditing was like. But this has given me a more understanding on a doctrinal level of why certain things are the way they are. That makes sense. All right. I'm only going to go for a little while longer. This is a very long chapter. Okay. Where are we? Okay. So it was supposed to make you better. Okay. Entering a case then where one has a chronic psychosomatic illness and what case doesn't have, even though it is as slight as an occasional fit of sneezing or hiccups. The auditor first scouts it, going through a returning routine to find out how early he can get for material, how the state of the sonic recall is, how occluded is the youth of the person, and so forth. When he has made this survey, he begins to make his computation on the case. First, was the happy child with both father and mother? And if not, where was the child happiest? There will be where the allies live. Was either parent an unreasonably powerful factor in shaping the thinking powers of the child? Here again may be an ally, even if a poor one. Did the patient have grandparents or other relatives? How did he feel toward them? All this data will be more or less occluded and warped by demon circuits and is about as reliable as the data this patient will inevitably try to get from loopy parents or relatives who not only do not know what happened to him, but might be most anxious not to have anything discovered. What really did happen? Don't let patients ask relatives or parents anything if you can help it, for these are re-stimulators in the extreme and never have any data you can use. The patient, I'm going to stop right there. So right there, what I'm seeing right there is don't let them ask relatives or parents for the reason stated. Also, here's just another way to isolate somebody from their family, is kind of what popped into my brain right there. Just don't talk to them. They're the ones that cause your issues. They're not going to tell you, or they won't remember, yada, yada, yada. It's just another reason for them not to have any kind of important talks with their family. Okay. What really did happen? Don't let patients ask relatives or parents anything if you can help it, for these are re-stimulators in the extreme and never have any data you can use. The patient is just trying to use them as bypass circuits to avoid the pain of recalling things himself. When the case is finished, he will no longer want to hound these people. And if you want a check for research reasons, get one of the relatives to put him through therapy. Does they mean regular therapy? That's an odd sentence. The auditor now has some slight idea of who the allies may be. And here comes the Achilles heel of the ally computation. Any ally computation may have included the loss of the ally, and the loss of the ally may be the trigger which will start chain fission. For what we are going to try to do is blow off or discharge as many life force units as possible from the reactive engram bank and weaken it. Every charge we get from the bank will reinforce the ability of the patient to carry on in existence and will aid his analytical mind to get into the engram bank. Hence, discharging these frozen units is a vital and important part of therapy, and the condition of the case will improve in direct ratio to the number of these units so discharged. Okay, I'm going to finish this page. And by the way, when it sounds like I'm reading Run On, that's because that's how he wrote it. The man does not understand punctuation. Consider these life units as free life energy. That makes more sense. An engram capturing them can set itself up, for all intent, as a life force. It is then an entity, and only then. The demon circuits, the valence walls, or personality walls, which compartment the analyzer, so to speak, and bring about multivalence, multi-personality. The force and power of the engram itself are all dependent, according to theory, and as observed in practice, upon usurped life units. To free these units is the primary task of therapy. To relieve pain from the engrams is the secondary task. To make the patient comfortable during therapy does not even rank, though there is no need he should be uncomfortable. The dual character of therapy, then, is actually two sections of the same thing. Relieving engrams, there is this dual nature in engrams, however, that they have painful emotion, where that means usurped life force, and physical pain, where that means pain of injury, illness, etc. To get as early as possible, as fast as possible, and find basic is the direction and intent of therapy in its first stages. To accomplish this, when it cannot be done immediately, merely by returning and finding basic, which can and always should be tried, one relieves the case and robs the engram bank by releasing life units. Painful emotion captured them from the ally computations. All right. I think we can stop there. And I'm going to underline that too, where it says the direction and intent of therapy. That's a good paragraph. All right. So we ended here. Wow. Another wow. Half don't understand what the heck he's saying, and the other half, where did he ever come up with these dang ideas? Really, I mean, I get places that he studied, and can you hear my dog barking? Let me know. If you can, I'll get my hubby to come get him. They go out, they want to go out, and then immediately they start barking to come back in. He writes this so scientifically that I can understand why he's smart, in that he always words it like this has been going on for a long time. This has been studied for a long time. This is a science. Like, he didn't just make it up. That this is a science that's been used for a long time. He just put it into book form. He's really good about doing that. I see that when we're reading. I don't always remark upon it. But this, I can see at the time that he probably started thinking this up, and he was doing the black magic thing. He studied a little bit of, actually maybe a lot of Freud, to be honest. I'm going to go in. I might do a little bit of quick research on Freud. The only thing I know about Freud is his basic tenets, and when people talk about him, I don't really know. Wasn't really ever interested. But this has made me interested in it a little bit more, just to see if, did LRH get those ideas from Freud, or did he take Freud's ideas and take them to the nth degree, which is what I think, but I don't know for sure. Hold on. I'm going to move the camera. Trying to get that light out of my glasses. And I can understand now, like I said before, why Scientologists have been either don't think doctors and regular science and therapy and will help them, because of the way he words all of this, is he's got the better track on how to help you, and that regular psychology isn't going to help you, because they don't tell you everything physically wrong with you goes back to your mind, and that he can fix you if you go clear and you go find all these engrams and get rid of them. Then your arthritis will be better, your headaches will be better, your eyesight will be better. I mean, it's a tall order. I think he went a little far, and I do think he actually even said something about cancer at one time, but I believe I heard he had to take it out because you couldn't say you were curing cancer. But I know in this book, reading it, it said up to, but not including cancer and something else, but that they were working on it. So it makes me understand also why even celebrities with a lot of money, if this is what they studied, why they're dying of stage 4 cancer. Because the first symptoms, pain, whatever symptoms there might be, they're going to go to auditing. And it's going to have to get so severe before they'll go seek out the doctor or a hospital. And by then it's too late. So we were thinking more along the lines of Scientologists are contracting cancer way more than most. What I really think it is they're seeking medical help way too late. And that's why we hear of them dying more than, maybe the normal percentage. I've had a lot of cancer in my family. The only two that were stage 4 was my mom and my uncle. He had a brain tumor. She had possible lung cancer. They still aren't even sure. But most of us get checkups. Most of us go to the doctor when we start having illness, some sort of illness. Remember, I heard about one of the Sea Org people. She was isolated in a room for 4 months because she was sick. And finally, at 4 months, they let her go see a doctor. So even a normal illness won't get you a doctor. So you're going to get more severe before it gets better, or before you seek help. So now I kind of, because we were thinking, well, are they getting more cancer from the ship, the asbestos, or this? I don't think they're contracting it more than most. I think they're just dying from it more than most because they're not seeking out medical doctors. Can you hear her barking? Because if you can, I'm just going to let it go. Drives me crazy, though. See if the hubby's still awake. This is like middle of the night for him, so he kind of woke up. He just happened to be awake. Oh, I don't want to do that. So, like I said, I'm glad I read this because it's making me understand on a doctrinal level on, because when we listen to survivors and they tell us their story, they're not going to be able to teach us all there is to know about Scientology. So a lot of times we just hear they're afraid to be unconscious, they're afraid to go to the doctor, but now we're hearing it from the author and, word for word, what they're learning and why they don't want to deal with it. So I really am getting it. He's trying to herd the dogs into the bedroom with no words. He's just pointing. Go ahead, honey. It's okay. Go to bed. Just tell him go to bed. Go to bed. Thank you. He's taking him in the bedroom. Oh, wow. We're probably going to have a part 3 and part 4 of this chapter. So this obsession, I hope I am going to do a little bit of research. I don't know how much there actually is. That genealogy research is going to be interesting. So I wanted to tell you, we've only got I was looking at yesterday at how little we have. Problem is, by chapter, it doesn't look like a lot, but like this chapter is 45 pages long. It's ridiculous. Wait, what was that? Did I read this? The Scope of Dianetics? Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it was chapter 1. Duh. All right, where's the chapters? All right. So we're in book 3, which is called Therapy. In chapter 7, we only have 3 more chapters. Well, sort of. So we have chapter 8, Some Types of Engrams. Chapter 9, Mechanism and Aspects of Therapy, Part 1 and Part 2. Chapter 10, Dianetics, Past and Future. So we're getting close. Appendix, Dianetics, The Bridge to the Future. We may have to read that to finish out the book. So it is a little bit more than I thought, but we're over the hump. We're way more than halfway. Let me see if I can. All right, there's the gloss. So this is what we have left. So we've read this. We have this. And then all of this back here is glossary, appendix, other books and stuff like that. So it's still a good chunk. But after we get through this chapter, hopefully they won't be so long. I dug into his genealogy a bit more. That wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, that is going to be interesting. I'm going to let you do that part. Because remember I did just the history of what he studied, the black magic, and then the Dianetics. I didn't really go into his childhood or anything like, or his family. I was going to, but I'm going to let you do that, Cricket. So, since I know you're working on it. So, we'll see how that goes. Wow. This is a doozy. So, the next book we'd kind of chatted about starting was, I forget the guy's name. I quoted him. I just, you know how I am with names. John Atack. Yes. He studied Scientology and LRH from being a member to helping people get out of cults. He would actually be hired to go help people get out of cult. And then he's written many books. The first one was A Piece of Blue Sky, which he called it that because I don't think it was him personally. Somebody was with him when they went to open up the first Dianetics Center. When they went to open up the doors, LRH turned around and said, okay, everybody, let's go sell these people a piece of blue sky, and open the doors. Pretty much showed his whole personality in that statement. How much more of that printed toilet paper is actually left? Pretty good chunk. But like I said, they're going to break down engrams. So this one chapter, Lord have mercy, I need new glasses. I need to get, let's see how much of this, oh my gosh, guys. This chapter still has 331 to 331, 10, 16 more pages of just this chapter. I'll see if I can read fast next time and not get so shocked at the things that he says and not talk about. So if I can read pretty quick, I think we might be able to do that in one day. I'll try. Marco, if you're still here, yeah, you are. The reason I canceled last night was, so we're going to have this stream, which I need to get back with everybody again. So I actually wanted to have it today, but I just wasn't getting everybody together that I want for a fibromyalgia / maybe chronic pain, chronic illness, like just talk. Because I found out there's so many of us with fibromyalgia. So in talking about it and other people talking about it, we were talking about medications, and I started looking at mine, and I'm on gabapentin. I didn't ever want to go onto it, and I didn't for fibro for years. But when I injured 4 more discs in my back, and nothing was helping, I went on the Lyrica gabapentin, same thing. And it did help. But I've had the stimulator put in my back. It's doing well. So I had to call. For some reason, they didn't get the prescription when they sent my prescriptions in like last month. They missed Lyrica. So I was getting low. I'm like, I'm going to need to call them and find out what's going on. Well, then I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? I wanted to wean off anyway. So I did. So I went down to one a day. And then Thursday morning was the last one I took. Now, even weaning off, my body's going to go through it. So Thursday night, it was really getting to me. Or was it Friday night? I think it might have been Friday. I'm not sure. Anyway, I have this amitriptyline that they gave me just to help me sleep. I've had the bottle forever. I never use it because it makes me super groggy. Well, all I wanted to do was sleep and get away from the symptoms that were coming back. I was getting the pins and needles all over my body. We call it in fibro, we call it the voodoo doll. It's like somebody has your voodoo doll and a pin and they're just sticking you random places. Well, I still get those, but when I went off, all my nerves were kind of firing. That was uncomfortable. And so I took the amitriptyline just to sleep. And I had honestly had the best night's sleep I'd had in a long time. But the problem with that is it makes me groggy all the next day. So I was okay with that. So I couldn't go out Friday. Well, I ended up yesterday, I took one during the day because things were really going out of whack. And it just made me so spacey and just so tired and so out of it that I missed the beginning of my late night stream at 10 last night. It was like 10:13 and I was just out of it. I wasn't asleep, but I was out of it. I said, oh crap. So I popped on. Scooter Mom was there asking where I was. I said, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have even scheduled it. So I just been feeling out of whack. Today, did I take one today? I don't think I did this morning. I'm starting to feel a little bit better. So, but then I looked up amitriptyline, and it has the same side effects as Lyrica: weight gain, some other stuff, messes with the brain. So I don't want to go off one med to go onto the same, almost same type. So I'm trying not to take as much. So that's why I'm a little more awake today. So I took one last night. I'm only going to take one at night to help me sleep, just to really sleep and not feel it. As soon as the pins and needles are better today. So I figured it'd probably take me about a good week or so for my body to kind of really get it out of the system. And we'll see how that goes. I am feeling some pains I didn't know but it's okay. I don't like, I've been on pain meds since 2008. So it's a long time. And so what really brought this to the fore, if you know, been having a lot of teeth problems. I've had five teeth crack, like 4 of them in half. Well, my daughter's the one that mentioned just a couple weeks ago. She said, Mom, you've been on pain meds a long time and they cause problems with your teeth. And I said, really? So I looked it up and darned if it wasn't the truth. So I told my dentist that, and he put me down as cracked teeth syndrome, which is probably just a catch-all number. Yeah. The only reason I don't like to take it is it leaves me really groggy the next day. So I wasn't taking it for sleep. So it's just been sitting there. But I know. And I read you guys a paragraph one time that had no period in it. It was comma, 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 comma. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing I wanted to get into was his possible illness / mental illness, because somebody, I think it was John Atack, mentioned frontal lobe epilepsy, and that probably many cult leaders have had it. And it does make you write a lot. So I was going to get into that a little bit more in just a short video. I wanted to research a little bit more. Plus, I'm pretty darn sure. I mean, when I read the thing about playing a game, I knew that he never believed his BS. And it was do as I say, not as I do. So when he died on psych drugs, I don't believe for a minute he ever kept himself off of any drugs. So he probably was taking things that would make him want to write a lot also. And the fact that nobody like edited this the way they should edit a book, that's why he self-published. Because if anybody looked at that book, it wouldn't have been, you know, I don't think it would have read the same. But and the fact that it only took 3 months after it was published to get totally obliterated in the press, because all it took was a few journalists, doctors, psychologists to even crack it open to realize it was a bunch of BS. Who's that? The Austrian painter. Oh, yes. I know who you mean. I call him Adolf, right? Yeah. And he read him too. And the people he was intertwined with the black magic and all that, had ties to people in the SS too. So it's kind of all in that time frame. Kind of weird. I read that the Sea Org wasn't just based off of the Navy, it was based off of the youth group in Germany too. I know. First of all, could any half that book would be gone. But it'd have more punctuation. And it would probably be an easier read. Because I don't know if you were with me that day, just for giggles, I took one of his paragraphs and I read it into ChatGPT and I said, okay, make this more simple. And it turned it into a sentence. That made sense. So, wow. Yeah. I can't believe y'all are sticking around because I have to read something. It's hard for me to just hear something and retain it. I write, like in church, I would write notes that I never looked at again. Just help me remember things like that. Oh yeah, he totally did. Totally did. There's no way he came up with that stuff all on his own. And we know that his dad was stationed in Southeast Asia, I think the Philippines. And so he had access to, other type religions that he probably did a little bit of. I think he got most of it though from like Freud. He got the people manipulation from Aleister Crowley. I think he learned that with the black magic. Then he was stationed some places. And I know that he read Aleister Crowley's Book of the Law when he was 16. So, I mean, way back, he was interested in all this alternative stuff. So, a lot of people said his science fiction writing wasn't that good, but he did have a few good ones. He had some that were serialized in magazines where they would publish like a chapter in these magazines back in the 30s and the 40s. When he was married, that's what they were living off of. So some of his stuff did get published. A lot of it didn't. Like I said, I read Battlefield Earth a long time ago. It's sitting right there on my bookshelf. I'm easily entertained. I liked it. I liked the premise. The movie, I can watch a B movie. So I was okay with the movie. But I didn't. But then again, it takes a lot for me to hate something. I'm easily entertained. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he did. He's taken basic human relationships, human emotions, basic behavioral therapy, and just changing all the. He used his fiction writing or his imagination to change it around to sound original and new and different. And when it's the same stuff. Yeah, they are pretty obvious. And I've always said that even before I found out that he was even involved with those people, my first thought when I first started, you know, uh, studying or listening and deep diving into Scientology was he was in the Navy during World War II. And I've watched a lot of documentaries about World War II. And a lot of the reason, how was one person able to take control of a whole country and their thoughts and the way they acted? And part of that is propaganda, taking over the media, keeping them isolated, and only hearing the media from his point of view. That's what LRH does. Even though there's people in the United States that are in Scientology, if they're in Sea Org staff, he's insulated them from all other propaganda, only his. And I think also that's why he was such a prolific writer and why he put down so much is he had to keep on top of the propaganda. He had to keep new stuff coming out or to have so much stuff that you didn't have time to read anything else or have any other interest. You had so much to take up your brain with all the stuff he put out that you never had a chance to think for yourself or go look at anything else or read anything else. You had too much to do. And that was one of the ways that he controlled people, and he controlled the narrative. More like Z. Yeah. It's not one I've ever watched more than once. I like the basic concept. It was just too long. Basic concept was interesting. But like I said, like I have IMDb on my phone and I'll look at that when I'm looking at a B movie. If it's below, I'll watch anything down to a 3. If it's 2.5 or lower, no. As long as it has a decent story, decent dialogue, I really don't even care if the set work is subpar. It's like reading a book. It's in your imagination. But when there was one movie that it took me 4 different times trying to watch to finish, and I think I only finished it out of spite, called 40 Days and 40 Nights. That was so bad. I mean, the acting was so bad. It's just so bad. The effects were so bad. It was just so bad. It was so bad. The basic premise was we were going to have a flood, modern day flood, and they built these ships to hide on, but it was modern. Josh Hartnett. No, I don't think he was in 40 Days and 40 Nights. I don't think there was any big actors in that. Well, I think there's another movie called that, but it's old. It's many. I like disaster movies too, and I don't mind when there be. Hey, how are you? In Fundamentals of Thought, he mentioned that you overwhelm people throughout creating them. People are overwhelmed in Scientology with the sheer volume of materials they need to get through, and that's exactly it. Yep, that's exactly it. Hi, A. We're still not through this chapter. It's super long. And it just showed us his obsession with what we talked about before. You didn't really miss much. With the pregnant women and all that, and the prenatal engrams. Maybe I'm mixing it up. Sometimes German title don't match original title. Oh, you're right. You're right. For you, that's probably what that movie was called. Yeah, you would know if you watched the movie I'm talking about. It was bad. It was really bad. I'll show. Let's see. Hold on just a second. See if I can find it. But yeah, just whatever you do, don't ever watch it. Where's Google? Yeah, because I'm sure there's probably more than one movie called 40 Days and 40 Nights. 2002. Is this it? No. Oh, okay. What you saw was a comedy romance. I see it came up. It was the first thing came up. I've never seen that movie. The one I'm talking about. No, that Josh Hartnett was in that. Let me see if I can find the other one. Oh, here it is. 2012 movie. Alex Carter and Monica Keena. I don't even know who they are. Yeah. It's a disaster. It's a disaster movie. Let's see. Can I bring this up? It's an action sci-fi from 2012. When a colossal tectonic shift causes the sea level to start rising, a microbiologist gathers the DNA of as many species as they can. Okay, obviously I even forgot about that part. So they're trying to put all this DNA onto this ship to survive. Yeah. No, that Josh Hartnett movie actually looks kind of cute. I might watch it. Oh, okay. I'll take your word for it, Marco. I like Josh Hartnett, but mostly his later stuff. Oh, gotta switch glasses again. Sorry. It's like the computer screen is just far enough away that these don't work. The volume of material also creates the impression, legitimacy. It's hard to conclude that a sprawling system can be essentially nonsense. That's true. Yep. I mean, like I said, if the guy had put half of the effort that he put into Scientology and into an academic career or really helping people, things could have been vastly different. Yeah. Yeah. I forget that they do change titles sometimes because I watch a lot of dubbed movies and anime and stuff like that, and to see the difference in title. But yeah, the sheer volume of material, the volume of like orgs there are all over the world also gives it a lot of legitimacy. And that's why it's been so much harder, I think, to try to get our governments to, investigate, because they have so much money. They have these beautiful buildings in places. People they don't look at it and see like the Nexium cult or the Jim Jones cult or the cult that was the space cult. I forget what they were called. You know what I mean? It doesn't look like the run of the mill cult. It looks like a religion. And it frustrates me to no end that we can't get more people in our government to investigate. My only hope is we've turned a corner in that we've seen a Scientologist go to prison for their crimes that Scientology tried to cover up. it was shown in court that they tried to cover it up and protect him. So, I mean, it's a nail. I mean, it's small, but it started something new. You know, somebody asked me in an interview, Ben Bacon Bits. He asked me, what do I want to see with Scientology in 10 years? And I said I would be happy with, at that point, having had hearings in Congress by that point. It would suck that it would take that long, but it's a milestone. And I'm hoping what they say about the grand jury in California is true, that because they harassed the prosecutors in Danny Masterson's case, they harassed witnesses. I believe there's a grand jury investigation on obstruction. If only that happens, and if only they can prove it, that'll be another, notch in. I don't have good analogies. It'll be another nail in the coffin. And then there's us, you in the chat, SBTV, the other streamers. The more people that tune in, the more people that pass it on. I'm still getting people stop by me, though, that know nothing. 2 years ago, I didn't know anything about Scientology. So for most people, they don't. So those are the day. I mean, in the first hour on Thursday, I had 3 couples. I won't say couples, but it's rarely that there's one person. Well, I won't say that either. But I had like 2 friends show up. It was like 3 different times, stop and stay for my long spiel. And my sign says, Scientology to call, ask me why. And that's how it always starts the conversation. And they're like, okay, why? And I always, you've heard me start with, a cult doesn't let you leave. And I go into why. And so I'm hoping, standing in these major cities on these street corners, that if they don't get anybody's attention on YouTube, I'm hoping that maybe one of those people that walk by is a senator's nephew or a law enforcement's cousin, or they're, something that, they're going to go and say, hey, did you know about this? To somebody that might tell somebody else, and it might get up there somewhere, and we might actually start getting the interest of the government. And the more other countries that ban them and investigate them, the better, because they may be standing back to see what happens over here and then be like, okay, well, they just found out they're pieces of crap. Let me go back up here. The volume, yeah. Hubbard could never have been pro-social. He was an arsonist, not an architect. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was never going to happen. It's just the thought that if he hadn't have been so messed up, things could have been vastly different. Yeah. A thing in school for me since 8th grade. Wow, you started early on it. Yeah. Right. Well, I didn't know that it was a cult. I knew it wasn't a church per se. All I knew was they had another idea of it, and that was just from their own propaganda. And in the early 90s, around 1990, my husband, I just got to California where my husband was stationed, and we were looking for a new church. And we saw, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a commercial on TV or a banner. I don't know what it was that I saw. But we were both like, you're young and things interest you. And I was like, we were both like, that sounds kind of interesting. Something about science might be fun. Well, we never followed up on it. Thank goodness. In late 90s, it was a big thing over here. Yeah. So it was the early 90s when I noticed it. But then the only thing I really knew is Tom Cruise was part of it. And I like Tom Cruise. So I assumed it was just a weird idea, that celebrities might get into. You know how they like to get into some interesting, weird stuff. But it wasn't until 2022 when Growing Up in Scientology came into my feed and I listened and I was like, if I hadn't been bedridden like I was and had that time to put, I wouldn't be here. If I'd had been my normal life, I'd have been working, volunteering at, I wouldn't have had any free time. So, like I said, I think things happen for a reason. But yeah, I didn't know the level of abuse either. And then it just, every time I saw something new, or he had, I found out there was other people with YouTube channels and I started listening to them. And then I think I got even more information when the protesters really started. And then I got to really see what Scientologists were like, what their security was like, and the lengths they would go against an enemy, which really made me have a strong reaction. I hate to see when people are taken advantage of. That's my biggest pet peeve. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yep, quite a few celebrities in Scientology. Again, I know. Me too. I binge watched Doctor Who and I binge watched SPTV. It wasn't that when I started, but yeah. I mean, there are days, I've told you guys before, that it's kind of surreal. I think about the fact, okay, so sometimes I'll be like this. I'm like, I can't believe I'm sitting here live streaming. People are actually in here to watch me. I still have those thoughts. I'm like, dude, I never saw that coming. I appreciate it always. But when we were talking about it in the abstract, years ago when YouTube was really becoming big, my husband watches knife makers and things like that. And we were both like, well, we don't have anything interesting to do on YouTube. We could never have a channel. Literally, we said that. And I'm like, things just happen. Yeah. 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 That's a good one. When I heard, yeah. I haven't watched a documentary or the TV show. It was all YouTube. Totally. That's a good analogy there, Adam. A good representation. Yeah, they have one objective and nothing else matters because that's what they're taught. So, and I'm hoping also, like I've said before, as long as we keep it up and we keep going as much as possible, the people inside are going to notice. And maybe it'll make them, and maybe it already has. Maybe some of them have already looked at what we have out and figured out what the real deal is. They just can't leave yet. We've heard about that from time to time, that even when people stop believing, they couldn't just leave. There's so many barriers to get through before they can really be free. I will check that out, Marco. I would like to know. I like a lot of, I like documentaries. I like to learn stuff. I got rid of Hulu because I don't watch enough TV. Yeah. And I mean, like I said before, I don't, even though there's been some things in the community of people not getting along, the people that came before, that did documentaries, that did TV shows, that wrote books, they were key. They were important, especially Leah Remini because she was a celebrity. People listened more. when she finally came out. And I think that helped a great deal. And the show helped a great deal because back then YouTube wasn't that big. So it got people that didn't know anything about Scientology to watch. Right. Yeah. And I mean, I honestly wouldn't have probably understood how LRH was able to do what he did until I read this book. Because in his own words, he wrote out what he said he was going to save you from. But what he was really laying out is how he was going to control people, how he was going to take advantage of anything. And on top of that, he knew from learning manipulation and controlling people that you've got to keep them in a constant state of as little as unease, as high as fear, to never want to speak out, to never want to have your own thought, because you go into auditing. What do? Ask you what your thoughts are. So I can see why somebody would get in. I mean, I don't think for a second now, yes, because you can research it. But before the internet, before YouTube, before all of this, and that's only gotten big a few years ago. So before that, where were you supposed to research? You couldn't. So, like I said before, if I would have read this book or even started reading it, I might have, and there was Dianetics centers and courses, I probably would have been interested. You know, and then go on top of that, back before, mental health has really only come to the forefront not that long ago. We have celebrities and people in the media being open about mental health. And now it's just recently become an open subject. So even after the internet started, so it's not even just that, it's just mental health in general. Because there wasn't a lot of avenues for, even in the 90s, late 90s, I was having issue trying to find a doctor that I meshed well with, or even I know out of all the therapists, went through quite a few, there was only one or two good ones. Some of them, they didn't do anything for me. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's taking normal human behavior, normal human, we're always going to have issues. We're always going to have problems with our parents. We're always going to have, he's just taken normal human behavior and turned it into a so-called science that he can help you with, that's causing all your problems. He went to the nth degree. Psychology doesn't tell you it's going to fix all your illnesses and your arthritis, but he did. He took it to this medical level that therapy wouldn't. Yep. Oh, yeah. And any salesman will tell you that too. That's why even salesmen know this technique. That they pressure you. They don't want to let you leave. They don't want you to walk off the car lot. They will pressure you until you say yes. So it's the same in so many different ideas. Hey, Eyes, how are you? Oh, that's fine. However you want to do it's fine. I do something similar. If you can pathologize autonomy, you've got them. Well said. Yeah. So, like I said, even though, and usually you guys are the ones that are always here, even though it's been a little tedious, it's been eye-opening. So I still think it was worth it. I've learned a lot from this book. just not in the way I think LRH meant for me to learn. So there would have been people trying to use the book as an alternative to going to a psychiatrist, which was stigmatizing to them. Yeah, it was stigmatizing back then. And like we said earlier, or scary. I'd be worried to say anything for fear of being sent to an asylum. You know? I mean, they used to institutionalize women that just spoke out as being hysterical. We're talking way long time ago, but, like 17, 1800s. If you just disobeyed your husband, he could put you in an asylum, which was pretty much just a scary prison. So I've watched documentaries on that too. There was the documentary, I don't know the details, it's been a while. It's my fibro brain. But there was an actual journalist, I think it was Bellevue. I think it was the one in England. I'm not sure. But she actually got admitted for 10 days and then wrote about it and what her time in there was like. And that's sacrificing for your story. Oh, and yeah, and the expense of a psychiatrist. Yeah, $200 an hour. My first psychiatrist was through the Army, and he was one. There's two types. There are those that'll give you, there's a term for it. My brain's not working good right now. Ways to help you and will really talk to you. And then there's the ones that are, so how does that make you feel? And that's all he ever said. Oh, I know. So I initially got sick in 2010. I didn't get diagnosed till 2011. And even then, there wasn't much out there. The books that I did find, take so many years to write, then so long to get published and get on the shelf. And by the time they were on the shelf for me to read, they were kind of outdated. They already had new meds and stuff out. So luckily, I found a chronic pain support group. That's what it's called on Facebook. I'm sure it's still there. It had 35,000 members at that time all over the world. Nellie Bly, 10 Days in a Madhouse. I knew y'all would figure it out. Thanks. I knew you'd figure that out. Yeah, that. Wow. That's what I saw. Yeah, that was a groundbreaking book. I think it really shone a light on what it was really like. Not to mention, you know, oh, okay. I missed the first part. Oh, yeah. You find those everywhere. Yeah, I'm glad. I learned about Nellie Bly from an amusement park named after her. I went, oh, that might be interesting. But yeah, I actually only heard that not too long ago, a couple years ago. But just different. Like I used to watch a lot of true crime, and they would do old cases, and those things would come up sometimes. Documentaries, it's just horrible. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine being me then. I would have been. My husband would have put me in a sanatorium for real, because yeah. Glad you didn't also. But some of them at first. This one, I think, like you said earlier, it has more legitimacy than some of those other cults that where it was small and they didn't have $1 billion backing them. They didn't have this proliferation of books and courses to take. So LRH did set himself apart from a lot of cults, not in the basic tenets or the basic way that he controlled and manipulated people. That's pretty done the same the world over. He just cloaked it better. You know what I say? He packaged it differently. And that's why it's been so much harder to get higher ups, people in government, people in law enforcement to take notice. Because they think that we're just these evil people that hate a religion, and which isn't even close the case. And I tell people that a lot of people will come up who are usually are a Christian themselves, and they're like, "Are you a Christian?" And I immediately say, "Yes, but that's not why I'm here." Because what other religions do or believe or think is their own business, I don't care. Until it gets abusive. That's what brought me here, is the stories of you survivors that have gotten out and told your story and told us what happened to you. And the sheer number of, I mean, look, Leah Remini had 3 seasons of her TV show. How many cults do you think could fill 3 seasons? Not many. You can pretty much get an hour-long documentary on most cults and you're done. You're good. You covered everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot of the ghost people going into places like that. They are kind of creepy when they're closed. But yeah. And see, when I do try to tell somebody, oh yeah, I agree. Even now, you have to watch out for people that work in the mental hospitals because they do take advantage of patients. It's happened. Hmm. Yeah. And there was a lot of bad juju in those places. But back up to the fibromyalgia being hysterical. Yeah, it wasn't even when we go and we do this like summit, I don't even know what to call it. I am going to mention it wasn't even researched till the mid 90s. In 1993, these 15 doctors got together and were talking and saying, "Look, I have patients with all these symptoms that I can't find a cause for." And so these 15 doctors got together and started researching it. So if you figure it didn't even start really until 1993, and I got sick in 2010, and the books I'm reading are 3 years old. I mean, it had only been being studied for not quite even 20 years, about 15 years, maybe tops. So a lot of research on my own and changing my own diet and everything is what helped. But yeah, so fibromyalgia, and like they can go back all the way to the late 1800s and see people with possibly fibromyalgia, but they called them, it was all in their head. Mm-hmm. Oh, in 2010 they were still doing it. And see, mine came on overnight. So it was like I was fine one day and it took about a week. I had this shock to my nervous system for me to go into the ER. I left work in an ambulance and never went back. And it took them a year. But there's some people that only have a few symptoms here and there. And a lot of times, what I've read about is it can take 10 years to get diagnosed. And by that time, sometimes they're in a wheelchair. I went from being fine to I needed a walker because it manifested in me as an overall weakness. I laid in bed, I could barely hold up a remote. I hired some lady from the newspaper to be my assistant because my husband was in Iraq when I got sick, just to come in and make sure I'm okay and open my mail. I couldn't even open my mail. I was very weak. I had tremors. It took a lot of things. We'll go into more of this when we do the fibromyalgia thing. I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but yeah. Yeah. And just to tell you, so when I did go into the emergency room, they admitted me as a psych patient. I didn't even know it. They didn't even tell me. So I'm there with my 17-year-old daughter. My husband was getting on a plane in Houston for Iraq for a year. He's like, it was a civilian contract. He just retired. He's like, do you want me to not go? And I said, oh, I'll probably be fine. He was gone for 14 months. This ER doctor comes in to release me, to send me home. She's never met me. She just came on shift. And my daughter looked at her like she had 3 heads. She goes, she can't even move. Every time I would try to move, my whole body would spasm. And you can't fake that. You can't. She goes, well, your CAT scan was clear and I've never seen symptoms like this, so it must be psych. So I spent 8 days in hospital accomplishing nothing. 5 years of hell. The books that I bought, I know I did that backwards. I bought a second copy, and as I was reading it and underlining things, then I sent those to my husband so that he could read it. And I still had quite a long time of him not believing some of the stuff I was going through. But it was difficult. It was very difficult. But I'll go into more of that on another day. So we've been chatting too long. I should go. So keep your eyes out. If I can get everybody together through my emails and stuff, there's a handful of people that I want to be like on the panel that have fibromyalgia. But I think anybody with chronic pain or an autoimmune disease, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, any of that could benefit maybe. I'm going to talk about the changes I made that made my symptoms better. And they can help any of that. And we'll probably talk about meds a little bit. What works, what doesn't. Mostly doesn't. So, I know, right? I know. When I have tried to like show what it looks like, I can't do it. Because literally, so she tried to sit me up. I could only be still, and my whole upper body everywhere just spasmed, just really fast. I was so mad. No, I haven't. But I do know that when I take my supplements, I feel better. I'm not eating as well as I normally do either. I used to do a lot better. So if you can make it to that, it'll probably be, everybody seems to think Sundays are okay, anywhere between 3 and 5. So next Sunday, if I can get everybody, because there's people on the West Coast and people on the East Coast. So we got to figure out a good time for that. So if you can be in there and tell us about the vitamin drips, that would be awesome, because I don't know anything about that. Yeah, this was fun. I missed last night. I was so out of it. I came on live for a minute to talk to Scooter Mom, and I had no video because literally my hair was sticking up because I'd been laying around all day, and I was starting to get worried, but I'm feeling better today. So I'm still feeling a little more shocks, but I'll be honest, I'd rather live with these little bitty shocks than what gabapentin does to your brain over a long period of time. Not to mention the weight gain it caused. I won't even go in. I weighed 108 pounds when I got sick. Actually, I was underweight. Talking about these medical is as much for OSA monitors as for SPs. Yeah. Whoever can benefit from it. I used to go on that support group on Facebook, and I would just periodically, because there's so many members, you're going to get different people. I would just put in what I changed, how it helped me. Anybody that wants to listen, I tell them about how I changed my diet. And it was because a nutritionist / chiropractor talked to me during a vacation in a jewelry store. She just asked me what was wrong. And she told me no gluten, fresh or frozen produce, no processed foods, and no dairy. I never went off dairy, but the only thing I really eat is eggs and cheese. But I didn't listen for another year or so because it was hard back then. Everybody has gluten-free stuff now. I used to have to drive to Whole Foods in Austin. It's over an hour drive for me to go there, hour and a half. So it was hard at first. Now it's easy. And I was sleeping better. I got more energy. My tremors got better. I was able to go off a couple meds. It really did make a difference. So if you all can be there for that, that would be awesome. I need to go. I shouldn't keep you guys here much longer. I think it's time for me to feed the dogs here soon too. But yeah, I missed talking to you guys last night too. I like just being able to chat about different things. I don't know if you know that Reiki energy. Yep. Sure. Yes. Oh, I'm into all. Okay, so quickly. Years ago, my husband called me a hillbilly hippie because I come from hillbillies, kind of country people. But in my adult life, I've read the Dalai Lama. I was into yoga, Reiki energy. I could have been a Wicca or a Druid had I not been a diehard Christian. There's a lot of things. So he called me a hillbilly hippie one day. Well, that's the name of my craft business now. It's Hillbilly Hippie Designs. So I'm a very conservative person. I say I'm personally conservative and socially liberal. But I get into all this alternative holistic medicine. I want to get off, find anything. If I can find something holistic or homeopathic instead of these prescription meds, I do. I try really hard. I have gone off many meds. Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about. I probably heard that story. Whenever you think you should, you probably know the best time, AA. I am having trouble. If I don't take the amitriptyline at night, I'm not sleeping very well. Yeah, alchemy. Yeah, I've got a whole notebook full of herbs and what they do and supplements, and I've studied them. The amount of supplements I take. I used to, I drink something. You know what? Even after and separate from the fibromyalgia, I've been wanting to sit down and just have a talk about my medical history because I've never really gotten into the nitty gritty of it. I just kind of tell you about why I got the pain stimulator and how I got into protesting. But there's a lot. There's a lot that happened and something that I could have sued so many people. I'm just not. Thank you, Eyes to See. I never thought that I was. I've just had a lot of really bad luck. Really bad things happen. But I just found out the same doctor that did this to me ruined my daughter's life. He told her she had something about 10 years ago. And when I went in with her and saw that it was the same doctor, the thing is, she didn't have a choice. She had workplace insurance. It was the only doctor. And she just found out from another doctor that he was wrong. She called me bawling her eyes out. Even though she found out she didn't have it, which was a good thing, I want to say it's been about 10 years. And I told her at the very least, we need to write a Google review. Because not only did he gave me fibromyalgia. He messed up. I'm just going to go brief as I can. He messed up my meds. It shocked my nervous system and took me into what they call traumatic fibromyalgia that you get from a trauma. Like Morgan Freeman has it from a car accident. My daughter has it from 2 carpal tunnel surgeries back to back. The doctor she has now ran a blood test. This doctor told her 10 years ago that a blood test wouldn't prove or deny she had it. And so he just said she did. Yeah, I know. And I don't want to get into another med like that. It was just given to me for sleep. So just to take periodically when I need to sleep. And it's for nerve pain too. So I'm going to try not to take it. I don't want to get onto another med. And so I could have sued him. I could have sued the hospital because not only did they do what they did, but I had people from church and my boss in my room when the neurologist came in front of everybody said, well, your CAT scan was clear, so this must be psych. I'm going to order you a consultation. That was not information for everybody. So everybody I worked with thought I was a psych patient. Everybody at church thought I was a psych patient. I know, they got me talking. It's all y'all's fault. We're just chatting now. That's okay, Miss Sunrise. So she even called this doctor. So that's what happened to me. My daughter, if we're going to do a separate chat, I may even about medical stuff. I want to do it separate. And I'll bring that up there. And it's just, this has just been last week that she found out that, she thought she had something that I don't even want to get into it right now, but I appreciate y'all. Oh, having a quiet house with kids and pets. I don't blame you, Miss Sunrise. I'm going to go, y'all. We've been on here 2.5 hours. I might do, or well, if we don't do a special side thing, maybe just next Saturday night, the late night chat, maybe, I don't know. Because I know there are people that are interested, only because I know a lot of you are my age group, have similar issues, things like that. And that's why I talk about it. So, but we are going to do the fibromyalgia / really anybody. You don't have to have fibromyalgia to come in and talk with us about meds you've been on, meds at work, because like I said, the changes I made can help a lot of different things. But I just, I need to go. We've been on here too. I can keep going. I can. All right. Yeah, I need to go. All right. See what's today? Sunday. I'll be out this week. It started to rain. I have my air conditioner on today, you guys. It's November. Why? This is even bad for Texas standards. I'm like, I've been waiting on it to cool off for so long, and it just still won't. So anyway, hopefully this week it'll be cooler, and I'll be able to go down and protest, and it'll be great. I've been wanting to bring one of my fur babies with me, but it's been too hot. So y'all have a good week if I don't talk to you soon. And thanks for stopping by today. Bye, everybody.